All right, it is the Omega Level Nerds YouTube channel here, and we're going to react to a recent death battle. One, of course, you know, I need to be involved with because it has Magneto, one of my favorite mutants, favorite X-Men, favorite comic book characters there out, versus an anime character. And although I'm not an anime expert, I have two anime experts with me. So we're going to check this Magneto versus Tetsuo battle out. But I want to get thoughts. So let's get some predictions. Halo Drama, let's start with you. What are you thinking here about this death battle we're about to watch and react to for the first time?
Well, yeah, absolutely. The thing about it is, obviously, I know about Magneto, not in depth, but you know, who doesn't know who Magneto is and what he's capable of?
Yeah.
Tetsuo, it's been a long time since I watched Akira. Long time, but I have watched it multiple times, and even knowing that we were going to do this show, I tried to find the movie, and I was going to rewatch it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. But maybe I just didn't look deep enough. I only went to Crunchyroll and I went to YouTube, and I couldn't find it. But I did watch a clip of an overview of it, you know, just to get me back in the seat a little. And if I had to predict, I honestly might have to give it to Tetsuo.
Okay.
Because where Magneto is the master of magnetism, I see Tetsuo as being able to control not just that, but things beyond that.
Right. He's got telekinesis. He's like the Dark Phoenix, like Jean Grey.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So that's my prediction, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. And Waverly Frontman, how do you see this going? What are your thoughts?
Well, I can see what Halo was saying about the fact that Akira can use more than just metal. I think the deciding factor will be experience, because I think Magneto's had a lot more use of his powers, and we've even seen him mess with magnetic poles and such like that. But
no,
that's a good point. Yeah, Magneto's got decades of experience on this dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that's really what I thought of this as, is like a Magneto versus the Dark Phoenix, where, like you guys are saying, she can control any sort of matter, where Magneto breaks it down just to metal. But in the end, I think it's going to come down to, I mean, if you're going to control something to kill somebody, it's probably going to be metal. And so I think Magneto does have a lot more a granular use of his power than Tetsuo will, where he can literally feel like if a planet explodes, he can feel that shit. Because he's so in tune with metal, manipulating the iron in people's blood. So I can see where, as long as Magneto can keep his helmet on, he's got a good chance of winning. If Tetsuo finds a way to take off his helmet and his telepathy can take over as well, then I think it could be game over for Magneto. But I'm gonna say Magneto here. I'm gonna say he has the experience and use of his powers to where he'll be able to fend off a Tetsuo. But I have not seen Akira. I do have to admit that. So I cannot say that I know his fighting power to a T. Is he used to these powers? Is he brand new to them? If he's brand new to them, then I'm going to give the edge to Magneto.
You know, and when I think about it, because I have seen Akira, like I said, it's just been a long time. I Waverly may have just took it over for me, and you may have just too. As far as Magneto knows his powers, he's mastered his powers. Whereas at a point in the movie Akira, Tetsuo lost control, and it overcame him. That might play a factor in this also.
He didn't have nearly as much experience with his powers as Magneto does.
Yeah, that's it. That is true.
Awesome. All right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and watch this thing and react. Please support the official release, of course, as always.
Magneto, Marvel's mutant master of magnetism.
Tetsuo Shima, Akira's telekinetic terror of Neo-Tokyo.
These two maestros of kinesis have ignited revolution not just in their worlds, but also the very mediums they exist within.
He's
that
Wiz
comic.
and I'm Boomstick.
And it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle.
Yeah.
In the short duration of modern civilization, likely no conflict tested humanity more than the Second World War. In the primary Marvel 616 universe, this fact is no different, especially to the Eisenhart family and their only son.
You may know him as Magnus, Eric, or Max, but if you ask him, he'd say his true name is Magneto.
As a Jewish child in Nazi Germany, Magneto's early life was,
Bad
well,
motherfucker.
extremely traumatic.
Even
Yeah, he
after
went through it.
eventually escaping certain death with his future wife, misfortune always followed wherever he went.
Thanks to his unexpected mutation called the X gene, the mark of a superhuman. After settling down in Russia with his new family, the KGB quickly found out about this quirk, so they burned his house down with his own daughter inside.
Naturally, he snapped and killed them all. I don't blame him. I'd do that too. Too bad his wife didn't get it and ditched him though. But that's when Magneto made a choice. Since humans hurt him his entire life, he'd do the same to them in the name of mutants everywhere.
At first, Magneto turned to the telepathic powerhouse Charles Xavier and his fledgling team of heroes. But his new friend wasn't thrilled with the idea of, subjugating the human race. So, Magneto formed his own team of mutants, the Brotherhood.
Magneto can telekinetically move, bend, and reshape any metal he's aware of. Bullets, vehicles, buildings, you name it. Even himself when he manipulates his personal magnetic field for flight and energy barriers.
Magnetic kinesis is far more versatile than it would appear at first glance. The blood in your body has iron in it. The air has traces of lead and mercury. Whole mountains are lined with metallic ore. The Earth itself is surrounded by a literal magnetic field.
So many toys for Maggie to play with. He can detect magnetic fields at such a huge range, he can even pinpoint Earth's magnetic rays while stranded on a planet in another galaxy. And guess what? He was able to use those rays to pull himself back to Earth in a single day.
His range is even more remarkable than that. Did you know that in 1820, physicist Hans Christian Ørsted discovered that electric currents, like those of electrons and protons and atoms, produce their own magnetic fields? Magneto can fine-tune his control to affect these very subatomic particles. Dummy here will illustrate such a particle, with positively charged protons and negative electrons.
My life is as meaningless as an atom is small.
So what you're saying is Magneto could, like, yank one of those out.
Correct, potentially changing an atom's entire chemical makeup. However, neutrons do not have a charge, and without the ability to adjust those to accommodate the change in atomic mass, the atom would become unstable and
Finally!
Right.
do that. Magneto's violent protest against humankind clashed with Xavier's peaceful reconciliation, not unlike the ideologies taught by Malcolm X and Dr. King, by whom Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were inspired. Magneto would spend most of his career pushing Xavier away to prove his philosophies superior, which meant doing battle with Xavier's school of thought, quite literally.
And Baldy's mind powers are no joke, but thanks to Magneto's
Yeah.
psionic repelling helmet, Professor
Yeah,
X
it's
couldn't
serious.
touch him. Magneto survived Cyclops' earth-splitting lasers, absorbed the power of the sun to battle Iron Man, ripped the adamantium skeleton out of Wolverine's body, and even taken on Hercules himself. You know, the Greek legend, Zero to Hero? The guy who held up the skies of Olympus for Atlas? That Hercules.
Seems sensible, Magneto once used the Earth's magnetic field to overwhelm the Phoenix Force, which can effortlessly destroy planets, let alone far more.
Hell, if he really wanted to, Magneto could totally just fling the Earth off its axis.
It's entirely possible he may have eventually resorted to just that. Over time, it became clear Magneto's war was doing far more harm than good for his fellow mutants, however well-intentioned he may have been at first.
Luckily, he later realized he was going a bit overboard and began reevaluating his perspective.
I got
Good
that
for you,
comic too.
Mags. It's really tough to recognize when you're the baddie.
It took time and patience not just from Magneto, but also from his peers. Yet eventually, his path was completely changed. He even became a leader for Xavier's X-Men.
But don't let his new goody two-shoes ways fool you. Whenever there's a threat to mutants, you can bet Magneto will be there to annihilate it. Forever, by any means necessary.
Over 30 years ago, a new type of bomb was set off over Tokyo, and 9 hours later began the Third World War.
Welcome to 2030, or 2019 if you're watching the anime. The buildings are taller, the motorcycles are cooler, and the future is brighter. Oh, wait, not really. If you find yourself in the capsule gang, you'll meet Shotaro Kaneda, who's like your textbook anime Chad. Gets the ladies, beats the baddies, and cops the sweetest rigs. Man, I need to get me one of those.
And then there's the little brother of the group, Kaneda's best friend, Tetsuo Shima. He's, well...
The exact opposite. A total wimp. As a kid, Tetsuo in his college thesis forehead got bullied for being the new kid at the orphanage. That's until Tetsuo Kaneda came to the rescue.
Eventually, the two
They
went to
have to do
vocational
him like
school
that.
together and formed the Capsules. But Tetsuo was never satisfied with Kaneda being the leader of the pack. Tetsuo desired more than anything to be top dog.
Oh, I can just see that monkey's paw curling in my mind. Or that kid walking down the street. Shit! Tetsuo, watch out! You're gonna... That definitely should have killed him. But since it didn't, Tetsuo earned himself a ticket to military confinement. Turns out they had
Okay.
an under-the-table program for developing child superweapons.
In the same program that backfired and jump-started the war, Tetsuo became Japan's Esper number 41.
He may not have been
Esper,
a natural
huh?
with bikes, baddies, or babes, but this telekinesis stuff hit different. He walked out of that hospital ward effortlessly flying, reading minds, and blending people into strawberry jelly. Tetsuo got what he wanted. Power, along with the hunger for more of it.
A hunger that used to only be satiated with drugs. And not just any gateway drug, pills so potent that a single gram of the stuff could kill you.
So, pretty bad. Kinda reminds me of college days, huh, Snow Wizard?
Tetsuo's main ability is his constantly increasing psionic energy, growing more and more powerful over time. This is due to Tetsuo's link to, quote, the memories of the universe, end quote. It's
Oh
weird.
shit.
Either way,
Crap.
Tetsuo leveled up from lame gangbuster to certified badass. This guy is a walking natural disaster. His telekinesis can shake the planet, easily cause earthquakes over a dozen miles below the surface. He can summon psychic barriers for defense and crush foes with friggin' gravity wells. He can dart around as a literal bolt of lightning or even teleport in an instant.
Tetsuo's telekinesis can be so precise he can target and obliterate specific parts of the body. He can heal severe wounds quickly, but even after losing a whole limb, he can craft a new one using whatever nearby materials he wants.
With these powers, Top Dog Kaneda didn't matter anymore. Who needed his approval? Tetsuo tasted that good shit and he was hooked. And when he found out another Esper named Akira could deal him even more power, he rampaged through Tokyo to find him.
And this is where versions of the story differ.
Spoiler ahoy!
You may be familiar with the 1988 animation, where Akira had been dissected for research. However, in the original manga, Akira is not only alive, but even more powerful.
Once that little runt nuked Tokyo, Tetsuo would erect the Great Tokyo Empire with Akira and himself as its leaders. But he ended up just abusing the position for endless sex and inflating his ego.
With Kaneda's rebellion at his front door, Tetsuo took a turn for the worse. He had to fight.
Tetsuo's defeated other powerful espers, dodged light-speed lasers, and jumped to the moon faster than anyone could blink, and then punched a big old hole in it. And if you ask, Boomstick, wouldn't that mess up gravity on Earth? You would be right, because it totally did. Screwed the planet, I guess. Stupid moon.
Which brings us to Tetsuo's folly. His abuse of his powers spiraled until he lost control. Unfortunately for Kaneda's rebellion, this did not make Tetsuo an easier enemy to confront. Exactly opposite, in fact, has Tetsuo painfully mutated into an unstoppable behemoth.
Yep, that's not totally disturbing at all.
I'm happy to say the manga's version is even more disturbing.
I mean, I know babies can be monsters, but that's a whole nother level.
It is pain incarnate. I can relate. Another Esper described Tetsuo's struggle as ego death, which has multiple definitions, but in this case is likely symbolic of the version attributed to drug use.
Yeah, it's described as a shedding of one's own identity, like how LSD can emulate a wild out-of-body experience, and you come back with a new perspective. Though this is maybe a little more extreme. In fact, you could say Tetsuo was shedding his human body to play with the powers of a god.
I wish I could shed out of my body. But in this case, Tetsuo going full out of body meant becoming a mound of raw, ever-expanding energy.
Which almost nuked Tokyo all over again. And those explosions are not normal. I would know.
Top scientists in both the manga and animated versions describe these explosions as births of a new universe.
Given its properties of nuclear fusion and proton collapse, Tetsuo's mutated form was likely creating a Big Bang.
You know, the thing that started our whole universe?
Right, in the manga, it instead ended the Espers and their abilities once and for all. A testament that humankind is unsuited to wield the powers of the divine.
Though the anime's even more trippy. Thanks to Akira and his buddies, Tetsuo got so high on ego death, he ascended time-space to become god of a new universe. Kinda worth it, right?
And yet, Kaneda kept his empire up in his honor, now as the Great Akira Empire. Ironically, in death, Tetsuo finally received the attention he so desperately craved.
All right, well, here we go.
Are set. We've run the data through all possibilities.
Yeah, because I was going to say that the manga information they were talking about, that was all new to me.
Okay.
Even in Japan, they fail to recognize our superiority.
Wrong country, Grandpa! You're in Akira turf now! You're dead meat!
It's the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 sprites.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Impudent child!
The hell are you calling child? I make the rules around here!
I don't know, that might be the X-Men vs. Street Fighter sprite.
Yeah.
Because you see the trails around his hands.
You're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Parlor tricks for the master of magnetism.
I'll kill you! Your history, scumbag!
That forehead.
Yeah. Busted right through that building. Oh. Trying to fight like Goku.
I believe I've had enough tantrums to last a lifetime.
I was thinking that he made that arm out of metal.
Right.
Listen, welcome, I'll handle this on my own.
Lost his helmet.
Hurts. Help me.
Metal Man.
Poor child.
I feel like he just special beam cannon that dude
Yeah,
in
he
the
did.
forehead.
Exactly. That's exactly what he just did. All right.
Nice.
Even with losing the helmet.
Tetsuo's esoteric telekinesis and other bizarre abilities certainly gave Magneto pause, but the Master of Magnetism had greater control over his foe.
The numbers don't lie. Tetsuo cratering the moon was insane, but Magneto punched Iron Man with the force of the sun. And while Tetsuo jumped all the way to the moon, Magneto could move across galaxies.
Against Tetsuo in his human form, Magneto obviously held a sizable advantage in power and speed.
But stats aren't all that matters. With his precise telekinesis, Tetsuo could just target Magneto's organs. GG, right?
Yes, but Magneto had similar skills. There are very few substances on Earth that lack any metallic or magnetic component, and Magneto is very creative with his powers.
Which he could use to predict Tetsuo's teleportation and even shut down his telekinesis. And his scraps with Xavier prove he could handle Tetsuo's messing with his head. The biggest challenge for Magneto was when Tetsuo's gross mutated power came into play.
Especially given how the detonations from this form were compared to that of a Big Bang. Although the authenticity of that observation is questionable. In truth, the Big Bang was a sudden expansion of matter on a universal scale, whereas Tetsuo's explosions are more akin to nuclear blasts, clearly intentional given the post-war symbolism of the Akira story.
The whole creating an alternate universe bit wasn't even part of the original material, so we can't exactly call it canon.
But let's just say the comparison wasn't superfluous. Let's say Tetsuo did in fact cause a Big Bang capable of creating or destroying an entire universe, alternate or otherwise.
Turns out Magneto had the tools to stop that too. Helmet Head could overpower Hercules, who was strong enough to hold up the skies of Olympus, which is literally heaven and an alternate universe.
This doesn't necessarily mean Magneto could easily destroy a universe with a snap of his fingers, but it does prove he can match a similar level of power. And context is everything. Tetsuo's Big Bang eruption specifically exhibited proton collapse, meaning its atomic structure was primarily an unstable mess of neutrons and electrons. And Magneto has detected and commanded unstable electrons before. This means Magneto had every means available to take control over this Big Bang.
Damn, and I thought he could just move some metal around.
And then
it's
special
like
beam
the
cannon.
question posed by some of the greatest prophets of our time. Fucking magnets. How do they even work?
Magneto's astonishing power and intelligent control over all things magnetism triumphed in the end.
Tetsuo pushed his luck, but didn't have the metal to pull off the win.
The winner is Magneto.
All right.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was nice. It kind of it went how I wanted it to go, but I didn't think that he would win if he got his helmet off. But I guess Tetsuo is not the psychic type. I guess I don't know. But yeah, no surprise to me. The master of magnetism.
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah, and like you guys said, it definitely came down to experience. And Magneto had that in the bag.
Like D said, that I had my doubts when that helmet came off too. So
No, I did too. But hey, they had a point there dealing with Xavier all those years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be natural for him to some build up some resistance there. So all right, good stuff.
Right.
I thought I was going to get mad at this one. Because, like I said, that guy, he's he can control everything. But I didn't know what his experience level was, and it turns out wasn't that great. And that was the difference in this one. All right. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's been quite a few death battles that'll do that to you. You're automatically rooting for one person.
Yeah.
Then when that person loses and they try to explain why they lost, you're just not even hearing it. You're just like, listen, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's been a couple. There was a recent one. I think it included a Street Fighter character that I didn't quite. And I'm sure.
Oh, was it Ken versus Terry Bogard?
Yeah, and then there was a Bleach one. I don't want to get too specific, but the Eisenmadara one. I don't know if everyone agreed with that, but
I didn't agree with the Eisenmadara one at all. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right. Go ahead. Sorry, I keep trying to. Go ahead.
They had one. It was a few years ago. It was Majin Buu. Majin fucking Buu.
Yeah.
Versus Kirby.
Yeah.
Needless
I don't
to
even
say,
think I watched that one because I'm like, no way.
Needless to say who I was rooting for, and at the end of it, I was irritated as fuck.
Oh boy. Okay.
But, I mean, don't get me wrong, their reasoning did make sense.
Yeah.
It did. Unfortunately, it did make sense. It's just like, what the fuck, though? This is Majin Buu we're talking about. But Kirby is fucking indestructible. By every stretch of the imagination, that dude is indestructible. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's a fucking marshmallow.
Right, pink marshmallow.
With an infinite stomach.
Right. Yeah, exactly. With an infinite stomach. Ridiculous. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
You like the next one?
Okay. It's the day after my birthday. I don't know much about Sun Wukong. But then
Don't
Hercules.
either. I know the only
controlled by gas.
The only thing I know is Son Goku is based loosely on him.
Right.
That's all I know about him. I'll have to look into that.
I think he's in League of Legends too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Or into him and his character. Yeah, like I said, the only thing I know is Son Goku is loosely based on him.
All right, well, we'll wait for the next one. Of course, we'll be reacting to more Dragon Ball Z Abridged. So until next time, peace and love, and we'll talk to you again soon.